to part two of the Pro Football Doc podcast. Mike Tannenbaum there for part one, and we have to let him go because he's so busy with the draft and so forth. And I thought that was a good segment as advertised. Mike's a quality individual, and I appreciate him answering all the questions and his candor. So part two here, we're going to talk about the controversy about OTAs or no OTAs. I'm going to talk about Give It To Me Straight, Doc, how coaches' opinions can often be discounted. We'll talk about a little baseball, a little bit of basketball and other sports. We'll have some fun, and we'll talk about how gambling is really here now with the new NFL announcements. And we will do our What Happened Here video analysis that we'll call Ragdoll and what happened. So let's get started here with part two of the Pro Football Doc podcast. And first off is there's a ton of controversy related to the NFL and the excuses about OTAs. Look, I don't want you guys tweeting at me or saying whatever. The pandemic is real. COVID is real. I've always said I could scare the bejesus out of anyone who thinks it's not. My wife has worked in the ICU during the pandemic as a nurse, but I also could talk someone who hasn't left their home in 6 or 9 months or more out of their home and let them know what's safe. The pandemic is real. And I'm not banging on players, but the NFL excuses about OTAs now, 19, probably 20 teams by the time this airs or more of the 32 have said they don't want to go to OTAs. But I don't know that using the pandemic, and you can check out this article, is really a valid reason. Yes, you have to be careful. Yes, you can have social distancing, but the NFL got through an entire season with no across the sideline transmission from one team to another, across the line of scrimmage transmission. Yes, within teams there have been transmission, but if you continue with the season rules, I think you can get an OTAs in. But clearly to me, I just wish some of the players would say it straight. I would rather work out on my own. I like that. OTAs are voluntary anyways. Currently, you don't need to change any of the rules. Just tell the team and don't go. I mean, it's your right. I'm not saying they don't have the right. If they're worried about COVID, tell the team and don't go. But I think it's more about not wanting to go to OTAs and then perhaps not wanting people, the other backups, to go to OTAs and in their stead and get reps. So I always say, give it to me straight, and give it to me straight, Doc. And this is, I'm not a big Bill Maher fan. I don't really watch it in HBO real time. I think he's more, I don't know if he's more right or left. I don't really care. I don't really watch much, but I really like this segment that I tweeted out. Give it to me straight, Doc.
And finally, new rule, don't spin me when it comes to my health. Over the past year, the COVID pandemic has prompted the medical establishment, the media, and the government to take a scared straight approach to getting the public to comply with their recommendations. Well, I'm from a different school. Give it to me straight, Doc. Because in the long run, that always works better than you can't handle the truth.
And he goes on a lot further than that, and I'll just stop there. You can go listen to it. I agree with that. I'm not taking sides on the whole COVID thing. And that's kind of what I'm saying to the players. Give it to me straight. You want to come, don't want to come. And same with the pandemic. I mean, the surface scare that's now 1 in 10,000 surfaces can give you COVID. Now, it's not 1 in 10,000 random shopping cart handles. It's 1 in 10,000 shopping cart handles with coronavirus on it potentially gives you COVID. So thankfully the numbers are low. And that's kind of what I talked about, viral load. It's real. COVID is real. Don't get me wrong. But we're all adults out there. Let's give it to us straight is probably the only thing that I would say. And for those that don't agree, I get it. and I'm not trying to bang on players, but first of all, the NFLPA informed players the NFL doesn't intend to discipline players in the offseason for high-risk COVID contacts. So you can go to bars, you can go to indoor events, you can go to fundraising events, you can do all of that, and the NFL isn't going to come and get you. But the NFL is going to allow that. Certainly, OTAs seem to be safe. And my buddy, and I didn't communicate with him, but Nick Hardwick, longtime center and Pro Bowler, calling it like how it is. Thank you for saying it. And that's kind of what I was saying. I respect their position, but it's not as much about the pandemic as other things. And the NFL's not clean on this too. They're using the vaccine carrot. They're trying to get all staff and coaches to be vaccinated because they don't have unions, and they can by saying, well, you still have your job, but you just can't deal with any players if you don't get a vaccine. Well, everyone knows that ends up you being marginalized. Even if you still have your job, you're marginalized. So I suspect all staff, equipment people, athletic trainers, doctors, you name it, are going to end up with the vaccine, because you can't afford to not be working with players. So the NFL's doing their side on that too, in terms of what's happening. The next thing I want to chat about here is coaches discounted, and talked about that a little bit with Mike Tannenbaum. But here's what I mean. Here we have Matt Miller talking about it. Head coaches and private position coaches are biased. They can fill in gaps, but Jim Nagy points out that private coaches are getting paid by the player or the agent, so teams rarely rely on them as sources. Now, my educational point for you all on the podcast is, remember how I've been saying this? As an NFL team physician, I didn't disrespect any private doctor opinions, private surgeon opinions, but I always took them with a huge grain of salt. I needed to see for myself. The private doctor surgeon is on the side of the player, and you're always going to get a glowing report. The head coach or the athletic trainer or the workout trainer or position coach from the kid in college is going to say glowing things, and they should. The only time you really want to watch out is if the coach says, no, that kid's not any good, right? Or if the surgeon says that knee's not going to work out. So it's just the way of the world. Agents are going to back the players. Their trainers are going to back them. Their doctors are going to back them. Their former coaches are going to back them. That's the way it should be. But teams will look at it with a grain of salt. And we're going to do a draft release here. We'll talk about some of the big injury issues. Look, Caleb Farley reportedly did very well. The Alabama wide receivers reportedly did very well. That's typically the agents saying this. It's not the teams or whatever saying, the agent or their individual physician. So take all that with a grain of salt here as we continue on. Let's talk about a couple of other things here that I think are fun that we'll talk about. And as you know, Pro Football Doc is not just, there's going to be some exciting announcements on Pro Football Doc coming up this coming year, but obviously you see on the Twitter timeline, we talk about things like baseball and basketball. Fernando Tatis plans to play smarter to keep his health, and his shoulder feels fine. He'll consult with doctors after the season to see if he can avoid surgery. You guys probably know I've said 3 shoulder subluxations in less than a month. Shoulder surgery is inevitable. I hope he can finish the season, but he's going to need surgery long term. 3 times in a month. It's going to happen again. I hope not. Look, so far he's changed his swing. Keeps his top hand on instead of violently swinging through. He did it at a home run. He's not hitting for great average. You know how hard that is to change a quarterback throwing motion mid-season? Heck, in the offseason, it's hard. Kudos to Tatis and the Padres. I am not second-guessing their decision. They're pot committed. They're probably going to see what happens over this next month. Whether they do surgery now or in a month from now, he misses this season and is ready for next season. So why not take a look and see what he can do? And I think the risk of long-term injury is low. So that's why they're doing it. So that analysis is kind of coming true. We talked a little bit about basketball. Jalen Murray, this one not so good. Last minute of the game, 50 seconds left. And unfortunately, I wish I were wrong sometimes. I am wrong sometimes, but this one I wish I was. Where right that step right there, the left leg, the knee buckles, and he tears his ACL, unfortunately. And that's been confirmed. And I think it's going to be ACL, MCL. I think it's going to be hard for him to be ready for the start of next season and do well. So unfortunate for him there. It's going to last beyond this season. And unfortunately, that video impression came true. But, some relatively good news. Donovan Mitchell, this was just a mild ankle sprain, and he should be back. You'll see his right ankle as he lands. Right there, just that little tail end, you saw the inversion ankle sprain, and he really should be fine going forward there, which is good news there. So we try and cross over a little bit. What else? Aaron Donald was in the news, and I know Deshaun Watson's in the news. I've been on the record saying it's unusual to need so many different massage therapists. But, I'm not trying to condemn anyone. Let's wait for the whole story to come out. Let's take a look at Aaron Donald. He was accused, he was going to be sued, and it turns out there was video where he was pulling guys off the guy who was getting beaten up. So Aaron Donald is completely exonerated. Now, I hope this exoneration of Aaron Donald has a lot of legs, because a lot of times the accusation is more long-lasting and more well-viewed than the exoneration. So hopefully his reputation remains squeaky clean here, because it looks like he actually did the right thing in pulling guys off and was not involved in any of that. So sometimes waiting for the whole story is the way to go. And I have to get out a shout out to my guy, Julian Edelman. Coach Belichick said a lot of great things about him. But, for a 7th round draft pick quarterback to dominate the game and do as well as he did, kudos to him. I don't care if he's in the Hall of Fame or not. He'll get what he deserves. He'll be in the Patriots Hall of Fame. If he deserves the Hall of Fame, great. If not, he still has had a great career. And kudos to him and the way he did everything. Let me tell you, when everyone thought he was going to Tampa, I was like, he's not going. He took less money to stay in New England. His legacy's with New England and the Patriots. He's set up for life with the Patriots and in the New England area, and he remains true to that. So kudos to the California kid that's done well. And finally, gambling. It's here. The NFL signed a 3-way deal with Caesars, DraftKings, and FanDuel. Look, I'm the FanDuel injury expert, but I'm just glad that everything is coming out well here. Caesars was already the casino affiliated with the NFL. Now they get Sportsbook too. DraftKings was already the official daily fantasy. Now they get Sportsbook. And FanDuel's now in the game with the NFL. And so hopefully, some fun times continue to come and with Pro Football Doc. Finally, let's go to some video here. Normally we have Beast of the Week, but in the off season, we try and do what happened here. And I'm going to show you some other video here. And it's for motocross, a sport that I have some familiarity with. I've done some motocross in my time. And if you look here, there's some X Games stuff. That's Dave Mira's helmet. God bless him and his family, and some X Games medal. I was the chief medical officer for the X Games. So some of the Travis Pastrana stuff, backflips, all these guys, etc. And here's some motocross footage. It's pretty exciting, but let's take a look at this ragdoll. And we'll show that again here. Well, you guys know me better than this. If he were seriously hurt, I wouldn't be showing the video. How tough is this guy? he gets up and gets back into the race, the next race. They were red flagged here, over the top, gets his ankle caught and he's flipped around. This is a case where him going ragdoll really helps him. Thankfully, there was no axial load, no C-spine injury, but he kind of rolled with it. He flips his body everywhere. And that's how he actually avoided injury. And sometimes going with it is the way to go. Sometimes we hear stories, unfortunately, where there's a drunk driver accident and the drunk driver walks away, but every other occupant doesn't. And sometimes, as he is here, just being thrown around and being ragdoll. And you see it in the NFL too. The complete surprise and going limp with it is sometimes a way to avoid injury as opposed to resisting. And amazing. And I'm glad to show this because he walks away. He actually races the night again with that. Anyways, thanks for watching Pro Football Doc podcast here. Mike Tannenbaum, thank you again. Check out the 33rd team. I'm excited about that. It's the same concept as NF Post, National Football Post, perhaps in a more stylized way. And that's where I sort of got my start. Thank you again to Mike Tannenbaum. Thank you to you all for listening and watching here. We got some fun stuff coming up. Please subscribe to some of the YouTube stuff. Give us some 5-star reviews. And coming up shortly here, I'll start to preview it already. Mother's Day episode. We will repeat our Mother's Day guest from last year, Kim Chow. She's very eager, my wife, as a Mother's Day. You think I can get away to have her on the podcast as my Mother's Day present? Do you think that will work? No, I don't think so either. Anyways, but we'll have her on for that in a couple of weeks here. Thanks for watching the Pro Football Doc podcast, and we'll see you soon.